have some fun on Monday night IndyCar action. Welcome along to the iRacing IndyCar series and to the Interlagos circuit. It's time to venture to tracks that traditionally IndyCar would not go racing at, as during the Olympic break, NTT IndyCar series stepped aside and we get to travel to tracks unknown in some cases. Hi folks, Arjuna Kankipati here. Delighted to have your company once again on a Monday evening as we see the strength of field race in this official iRacing Championship. Every couple of hours there are these races that go on. We'll get coverage of the top split with two different splits of competition ready to rumble. As mentioned, bit of a interesting swing coming up for the drivers. Homestead Miami next week. Back over to the oval sort of racing before visit to the streets of Chicago, and then Watkins Glen, the Milwaukee Mile, link back up with IndyCar to round out the season as they make their way back to what is a fantastic racing facility at the end of the month of August. It's been an interesting first half of the season, still 6 rounds left to go, and let's take a look at how the championship standings have fared on out. Remember, Phil Kraus, your defending series champion, he's established himself with a pretty significant margin at the very top of the field as well. Seb Alexander, Sam Carasala, Rashad Craig and Kevin Burrell, the quartet of Indy Alliance racing drivers, sit 2nd through 5th positions, with Olivia Hayward only 5 points clear of Matt Taylor, Lucas Lodato, Nick Sudik only 1 point between the two of them. And Adam Blocker, a driver that's won this championship more than a dozen times, sits down in 10th position. Of course, his real-world duties as the now race engineer for Agustin Canapino in the real world. We haven't seen very much of him, unfortunately, on the Monday evenings. Of course, he has been racing across the week. Let's not forget, as mentioned, every 2 hours there are races here in the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship. Some races likely to have more drivers than others, but we've got 18 Dallara IR18s that are ready to go, with qualifying drawing to a close. And take a look at the weather conditions as well. Not that windy, not that high in terms of track temperature as well, so should be an interesting race in terms of the battle between the alternate and the primary compound of tire to see which one will be the preferred choice. 17 times on the board, just Benjamin Hackison with no time, and so as qualifying jumps to an end, it's John Baderfer in the HydroRace geodesic racing machine that will lead us to the green here for what should be an action-packed 35 laps. There's plenty of draft here for the drivers to enjoy. A look from up above. Oh, we're in for a feisty race. Let's go down trackside, take a look at the starting grid. 18 Dallara IR18s, how will they line up for the 35 laps ahead? Baderfer in the HydroRace geodesic racing machine, 1:16.501, 88 thousandths of a second quicker than Agustin Canapino in the Juncos Hollinger racing entry. Sam Carasala, Rashad Craig teammates fighting for second in the championship, sit on row 2 with Brandon Roseborough, second of the black and gold HydroRace entries. Brian Carey, Powerslide Motorsports, lines up outside of row number 3. Daniel Manzano, Shady Ahmad, 7th and 8th positions with Nick Sudik, Joseph Manning, Charlie Sears, and then Lucas Lodato rounding out the front 6 rows and almost around 2 seconds splitting the drivers. Should potentially see traffic play its part around the pit window with Nicholas Marza, Craig Forsyth 2 seconds off the pole time, with Sophia Cannell and Olivia Hayward 15th and 16th, Robin Glennox, and then Benjamin Hackison at the back of the field, and just one driver as mentioned with no time on the board. Well, it has been a busy couple of days in the world of iRacing and its esports competition. Not a surprise, I think, to see some of our drivers missing in action. Phil Kraus not going to be attending today's festivities, along with the likes of Kevin Burrell and a handful of others, but should still be plenty fun. Just waiting to see what tire compound the majority of the drivers are going to jump onto the grid with. Seems right now electing to kind of use the primary compound tires for the most part. At least it would seem so. There's only 3 drivers, according to my timing screen, have elected to start on the softer compound, red sidewall tire. And a split on the front row. John Baderfer will start on those red sidewall soft compound tires. Augustin Canapino, as well as Sam Carasala and Rashad Craig. They'll line up on row 2 on the primary compound as well. Oh, Olivia Hayward jumps into chat to say that missed the start because she accidentally had gridded on the alternate compound, jumped back to pit lane to try to swap. Time was not on her side. Again, confirmation of who starts on what for. Confirmed the starting on the red sidewall alternates. You do have to use each compound over the course of the race. So how does this start play out? Does John Baderford stretch his legs at the front? That's what he's hoping for. Behind him, Brandon Roseborough, his teammate, the next driver to be starting on that same alternate compound of tyre. So maybe teammates up towards the front trying to work together. And here as well is where you see that massive long straightaway. Runs you out of the final corner here into Interlagos, out of Yunsao. And on that now climb in some ways, up to the start-finish line. So here we go. Pace car about to peel off and away. Fielding control of the HydroRace geodesic racing machine, and John Baderford gets us racing here from Interlagos. Canapino on the button trying to cover off, moved from behind, 3 wide, and a big send up the inside from Brandon Roseborough, taking advantage of the grip that he's got, and he goes from 5th to 3rd. What a rip-roaring start from him. Trouble behind, Charlie Sears in the wall, and as we descend out of Center S, down into the Curva de Sol, and running down the Retta Aposta into the braking zone at the Descida del Lago, it's single file inside of the top 10. Nicholas Maza, Joseph Manning side by side. Lucas Sedano squeezes by Shady Ahmad as well. And is that a slowdown for Augustin Canapino? Excuse me, no. Brandon Roseborough just making his move and sliding his way on forward. Nicholas Maza's dropped to the very tail end of the field, so a couple of bits of drama on the race start. But now switch it back through the hairpins. Out of turn 10, Pico de Pato. Already there's 2 alternate runners up front trying to break their legs. I should say break the margin and stretch their legs. And Rashad Craig onto the back of Augustin Canapino. Ride with the Indy Alliance Racing driver. It's a long ride as well before you're next onto the brakes. Nick Sudik, Shady Ahmad, couple of drivers deciding it's time to start to use the push to pass. See them lit up on the left side of the screen. Onto the brakes, end of the opening lap. It's 1.2 seconds, the margin for your race leader. No moves being thrown down into turn 1. Instead, it's out of the Center S where potentially Joseph Manning, that 13 machine, going to try and make the move on Shady Ahmad. But it's not just push to pass, it can be push to defend as well. Watch Craig Forsyth in that number 14, bright blue and white entry. It's not going to get the move done. Going to slide back into line. Now Forsyth did start on the alternate compound of tyre as well. So he wants to take advantage of the grip that he's got right now. How long will he be able to be patient for? Tell you what, there is not just one driver in pit lane, Nicholas Maza, but Svik Connell as well. Let's see if we can go back to the race start and figure out what all has happened here. So dive down out of the opening corner. Wide berth. Well, Charlie Sears runs himself out of the racing line there in many ways. Rather surprising. And then slide down to the Descida del Lago. They're wheel to wheel into the braking zone. And so, big slide for the 11. And I think that's why there's 2 drivers in pit lane. Nowhere to really check up. And big damage, big junk. Run down to turn 1 once more. It's Craig Forsyth who makes the move on Joseph Manning, takes advantage of the fresh alternate tyres and slices his way on forward. Let's cycle back though towards front of the field where it's separating on out. HydroRace geodesic, black and gold, 1 and 2. Canapino then being hunted down by Rashad Craig as we see this different strategy start to develop itself out. ride with Daniel Manzano back in 7th spot on the pressure of Brian Carey's rear end. Out wide a little bit as Carey just arcs the corner a little bit more. Descent down out of turn 11. Be careful on the right hand side with track limits. Don't want to pick up too many off tracks here. Too many off tracks, too many contacts with other cars. And the iRacing automated race control system will ding you with a drive-through penalty. So the only real fight at this point, since the drivers inside of your top 7 very much content to ride as they are, seems to be the likes of Lucas Lodato, 9th on back. You see Craig Forsyth trying to set something up here now. Continue to charge his way on forward. Benjamin Hackison, someone who didn't set a qualifying time, trying to make some moves as well. On board with that bright green number 10. Remember, starting on the primary compound of tyre here. Has not used a single push to pass, is saving a bit of fuel there as well. Quite interesting. So Nicholas Mazza, Sophia Canella now 2 laps down. Stands to reason, unlikely to see them roll back out onto track for the remainder of the race. Lucas Lodato sees the rear view mirrors being filled up. Nick Sudik's breaking away in that bright blue and pink entry. And on the button for a couple of drivers in that leading pack. Rashad Craig, Brian Carey. What are they trying to do here? Carey's running out of revs at this point. He's hitting the 12,000 RPM limiter that these Dallara IR18s have. Daniel Manzano goes a bit wide down out of turn 1. That's something else to watch now for. Some of these drivers geared themselves out of a chance to try and fight their way on forward. Craig Forsyth, alternate tires. He's already gained 3 positions since the start of this race. Out wide for Lucas Lodato in the Bearcat Motorsports number 9. Shady Ahmad can't take advantage as they flick it right through Ferragura, climb up the hill. Now swing the car out to the left before you stamp back onto the brakes. It's the move behind. Benjamin Hackison slides past Joseph Manning. Olivia Hayward's also going to slide up the inside of Robin Glennox in that Pure Michigan entry. Drivers a little bit further down through the field who at some point might end up being some traffic for your leaders in the fuel cycle window. That track map says it all. John Baderfer is about to catch the back of Nicholas Mazza, who has headed back out onto track. Have to keep an eye on that. It's push to pass City though here. 4 drivers on the button. And as we rise up towards turn 1, jink to the inside, Shady Ahmad will try and make the move. But down out of the center S, confidence from Lucas Lodato. Now what happens as they line themselves out of the long left-hander. Shady Ahmad back on the button and already alongside. Craig Forsyth tucked in behind, and well, alternate tires can't do much if they're side by side in front of you. He's got to pick a line. We'll look to the inside on Lodato. And now fight for 10th position. Drag race down to Ferragura. Who's feeling braver? Lodato thought about taking it 3 abreast for a moment, forced to concede and take it 2 wide. Ahmad sees the rearview mirror filled with the sight of a locked up right front. Craig Forsyth still trying to hold on for all he's worth. And they're stacked up behind. Benjamin Hackison takes advantage. Almost runs into the side of Lodato. Forsyth gives him a wide berth and run down out of turn 11. Long way around, Hackison up to 11th spot. Now Yun Sao on the power, on the button for Hackison. All action back here in the fight for 9th position. That car really got a rocket of a launch out of the final corner. Lucas Lodato's not going to have the chance to defend as he did a lap ago with Ahmad. And move made. Hackison, 8 positions now gained over the course of the opening 6 laps of the race. He's got some work to do, though, to now set up Ahmad. And then 4 seconds up the road to close up to Nick Sudik in no man's land. Meanwhile, speaking of no man's land, Agustin Canapino's broken away. And as you ride with Daniel Manzano, it's a fight for fourth. And a four-way fight for fourth at that. Indy Alliance Racing drivers fighting for second in the championship, sitting set at fourth and fifth. Rashad Craig just in front of Sam Carasala. Ryan Carey swings his car out wide. Does not respond to Carasala getting on the push-to-pass, though. Now Craig, Carasala and Carey, all somewhat more regulars on Monday nights. Great to see Daniel Manzano back on a Monday. Not often that we've seen him on these broadcasts. It is nice to see. For the top two, by the way, wondering when we reach the crossover point. When does Agustin Canapino start to think, right, my time to start making some time up, pun intended. Last lap was only 64 thousandths of a second. There's traffic to deal with as well. Hear the car roll at speed through the corner. Very, very much just minding alternate tires that do have to do enough of this race to get you to a point where your fuel's burned off. Let's ride with Canapino. See how much of the track he used on exit, and now watch the line as he tries to straight line it back towards turn one. Saves a bit of fuel as well. That's interesting. Very interesting indeed. Speaking of fuel, I am frantically, like any good commentator would, trying to do some rough estimates on some fuel numbers for you, and I get the sneaking suspicion we're probably looking at around, if my math is correct, a 14-lap fuel window, which means a two-stopper. Now, even if you can extend it out to 16 laps, that's still probably pushing it. So, does that mean that we've got a couple of different things to look for here? My math is not correct, right. Helps if I use the right column of data. It's a 20-lap fuel window. I was looking at the amount of fuel left at the end of the lap, apparently, on some specific VRS data from a certain power slide driver that's in a specific race that's happening right now. Anyway, 1 second between the teammates up front. Traffic has helped Brandon Roseborough to close the gap down. And watch the hands at work here. They're not fast. They're not Pato Awards level hands today. That's the track temperature. It's only, quote unquote, 37 degrees Celsius. It's not like it is as hot as it could be. A little bit hotter behind. Joseph Manning, Craig Forsyth, wheel to wheel. Forsyth's tires very much feeling the pain now. And that is going to be move made by Joseph Manning. Nice and tidy stuff. Yeah, in terms of the comparison between those up front, bring that back up. There you can see 3/10 last lap alone for Canapino. What's the story comparing Bedifer to Craig? Now that's still about 1/10 of a second. So, are we looking at Canapino versus Bedifer and Roseborough? Remember, in about 5 laps' time, that will be the window opening for these drivers on the alternate compound tire. You can see some of that hot air pluming out from behind the exhausts of the Lara IR18. Very subtle effects, but iRacing models it nicely. 1 second between Bedifer and Roseborough. terms of push-to-pass usage. Adafer yet to touch it. Roseberry used it on the opening couple of laps to make his moves to go forward from what was qualifying down in 5th to now riding up in 2nd. Another half a second gain for Canapino last time by. That Juncos Hollinger Racing number 1 starting to close. And a number 1 that Canapino has earned for the last 4 or 5 years. He's been part of the program, the team at Williams Esports. Competed in his fair share of iRacing special events, most recently winning the iRacing Daytona 24-hour race earlier this year in the top broadcast split. He is the technically strongest driver in the field. Now that last lap, Baderfield was also slower than Craig. He does respond this lap, goes from a 1:19.2 to a 1:19.1. Now Canapino still gains, Craig does not. So these are those margins to be talking about. Here's a look at the Indy Alliance Racing number 4. Confirmation of what was being talked about in terms of the times, the differentials. And there was another 2/10 for Canapino on that previous lap. Again, remember, you can see the entire compound choice on the left. Only 4 drivers thinking it was worth starting on the alternates. Nick Mazza came into pit lane after his incident and put them on. Gotta say, kudos to Sophia Cannell in the number 18 for heading back out there 7 laps down, but back out there on track nonetheless. More than can be said for a certain Jason Brophy in the RaceSpotTV YouTube chat. Now he says that he loves driving around Interlagos, but he could have been in the top split if he had decided to race. That's how it goes sometimes, I guess. So Brian Carey's lost some time to Daniel Manzano and Sam Carasala. He's under pressure in that number 7. Canapino within striking distance, though, of those up front. Madado on the button as well. Could those behind be trying to make some moves? At 9 machine a bit far behind from Benjamin Hackerson, but this usage of the push to pass just letting him close the margin up that little bit more. Jason Brophy says, driving fun, racing meh. I don't know, seems like something we'll have to talk about maybe with some of our drivers post-race. Seems like Canapino's having some fun hunting down right now. Within 2.5 of your race leader. He is going to get the draft right around when they're expected, those top 2, to potentially bail down to pit lane. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic. Canapino, who's already been saving a bit of fuel, does that continue? It's a bit too far behind for him to make a move, though. There's 4 more drivers on the button, 4th through 7th. Can Daniel Manzano get close enough to the back of Brian Carey, who does use a push to pass in defense? He's got still 3/10 off into the opening corner. He'll hold on to the spot. There's going to be another push on the button here. Manzano has got 2 more usages left in his pocket than Carey does right now. Not close enough. And I'm going to have to work hard to get a move done in through Ferradura or this middle sector, if we're being honest. Interesting setup compromise, of course, between needing to be fast at a straight line. That long run out of Yun Sao, out of turn 12 back towards the start-finish line in turn 1, but also through that middle sector, the mechanical grip wanted. Also some aero grip as well. You got that fast turn 11, fast turn 6. I guess it's even a fast turn 6 and 7 even. So end of lap 14, window should open this time by for your race leaders. And and it was a 0.6 of a second gain for Canapino last lap. Surely they've got to come in. On the left side of the screen, remember, that's the tire compound usage. Alternates, the red sidewall tire being slightly softer in their nature, but grip up more at the start of the stint, wear off a lot faster. The primary compound of tire, a little bit harder, more durable, but gives you less purchase at the start of the race. We're seeing, though, the crossover point. Half a second from Canapino last lap. And Charlie Sears has seen enough. He's down on pit lane. Lucas Lodato gets passed by Joseph Manning. That's for 11th and 12th positions. Must have been a small mistake, maybe a slowdown from Lodato. Maybe struggling in comparison to some of the others. Big wiggle there, though, from Joseph Manning. Remember, the balance of the car very much on a knife edge. Draft on offer, though. Do the teammates come in? I think Betafer is. Never mind, scratch that. They'll stay out for an additional couple of laps, it would seem. And what does Canapino want to do? Very, very interesting time of the race. Rosberg is ducking and diving, trying to give him a bit of that Brazilian flair. Samba down the Reta Aposta. Added to Interlagos. Watch the hands here at work. Runs out wide, but it's one smooth arc through the corner. Onto the brakes on that left-hand curb. Able to cut as much of the apex as possible. Craig Forsyth also down to the box now. A couple more drivers thinking it's time. That, though, is Charlie Sears. Let's not forget, got tangled up on the opening lap. Slow out of that very, very important turn 12. He had just come down pit lane. Oh, wow, it went wrong through turn 11. Oh, my goodness. Right, on the button for Brandon Roseborough. We know he's staying out there if he's burned a push to pass. What does Canapino do? Does he look to the inside? Not close enough into turn 1. About halfway through this race. Deciding moment now, you'd think. Brandon Roseborough, John Betafer clearly wanting to hold on to this track position for as long as possible. And Canapino being forced to run their tempo. He was about 3/10 slower than his own best lap last time by. Once again, very, very smooth hands at work. Wonder what the hands must be like for those drivers on very worn alternates now. So, end of lap 17. Fuel window takes you to lap 20. Surely they're not going to stay out for too much longer. You want to maximize the amount of time you have remaining on the maybe preferred compound of tire. Brandon Roseborough's on the button again. And Canapino, is he going to stall? Run out of gear? No. Betafer's in. Roseborough stays out. Run down to the center S, and here comes Canapino. No! Backs out at the last moment. Right. So teammates split their call. Very, very wise, you'd say as well. Canapino on the button once again. He does not want to hang around. He's forced to the outside, running down the Reta Aposta. In through the Interlagos. It's a cambered in corner. Roseborough holds on. And you can see no one else has followed in. John Betafer, where does he emerge? That's not ideal. He's directly behind Nick Sudik. And Betafer burned a push to pass there as well. Now Nick Sudik's just run wide, and Betafer's got through. But did that cost him some time? That's the question. And surely Roseborough in on this lap. They played their defense. And Canapino doesn't even go on the button. I think he recognizes the situation. He goes late. He gets 70 horsepower more. He's out of the draft. And I think he recognizes it's pedal to the metal. It's go, go, go time. It's a battle on pit lane. Pit crew already did the job for John Baedefer. It was 8.3 seconds stationary for him. You can see the dash lit up. He's on the button yet again. Had not touched the button for 18 full laps. Twice on that final lap after coming down pit lane. And surely he's got the undercut here. Slightly faster running out of that opening sequence. And indeed the gap opens up. Baedefer though, he got stuck behind Nick Sudik. Not going to be the case for Brandon Roseborough. And as around the outside, here comes Joseph Manning on Shady Ahmad. Engine traffic might end up being a factor right around this fuel window. How's a look to the inside from Joseph Manning, has to back out of it. That was a bit close for comfort, you'd think. Man, Canapino's going hard. Another usage of the push to pass. He's not coming into pit lane though. He will go as long as the fuel tank will allow. 1:18.448 last time by. Fastest lap of the race for Canapino. It's not the fastest lap overall. That's the 1:17.9, but it's trending well. Daniel Manzano has bailed from behind Brian Carey, and he will be the first of the drivers on the primaries to come into pit lane. Meanwhile, Ahmad and Manning wheel to wheel once more. Ahmad on the outside this time by, and can only watch in frustration as Manning gets it done. Man, this has been an intense race. I'm about to lose my voice. Quite literally, to be honest. Ahmad saved some fuel there. They're talking about in chat, by the way, that the last time that IndyCar raced in Brazil was going on 10 years ago. There's some drivers who, in the sim racing world, have fond memories of IndyCar and American open wheel racing making trips down to street circuits in Brazil and whatnot, including Gustavo Ariel, who once watched Tony Kanaan lose a race victory. He remembers crying. He was such a young kid. A couple of years ago, he got to race for TK in his esports team. How cool is that? Anyway, Sam Carasala, he was closing on Rashad Craig in the fight for second, but they both just dived down onto pit lane. Canapino saved enough fuel to go a lap longer. What about these drivers behind? Brian Carey's come in as well. So Nick Sudik, Benjamin Hackerson, Manning, Ahmad. That's what we're wondering about now. And maybe a couple stay out. But here is the rest. Already, Baedefer and Roseborough are going to side their way out of turn one. Baedefer last time by 1:18.478, so that's 4/10 quicker than what Canapino's just done. Right now, race off a pit lane. Who wins here? There goes Craig, Carasala, Carey in close pursuit, but Daniel Manzano's got the undercut. Great move from Manzano. You'll feel the pain later on, though, let's not forget. And oh, Lucas Lodato has spun it on pit exit. Carey and Manzano wheel to wheel. Carey confident around the outside. Oh, that's audacious. Maybe a bit too audacious in some ways as well. Right, let's focus on pit lane for one final time then. Yes, Shady Ahmad's yet to box. Same can be said for Nglenix. But really not much in terms of fights for them. Here we go. So Baedefer's not using his push to passes anymore. He burned through two, and that was it. Canapino up on the jacks, and it's 4 alternate tires, a tank of fuel going in as well. Already, Baedefer has slid on through. Now where is Brandon Roseborough in comparison? Oh, this is going to be close, and they recognize it. Roseborough's on the push to pass. He'll hold on, but by the slimmest of margins, and now with a feisty Canapino on the quicker compound of tires stacked in behind. Should be fun. Here we go. And you remember that thing that I said earlier about not passing in the mid-pack in this midfield? Right, throw that up the equation. If you're on the faster compound of tyre and you're feeling hungry, Canapino's also gone that one extra lap, let's not forget. He'll have one fewer lap with which to use this compound of tyre. Now he is a little bit at a deficit when it comes to the push to passes. They start each with 10 in this race. Now John Baderfer and Brandon Roseborough have 7 and 4 respectively. Agustin Canapino, he's only got 4 as well, and he recognizes that, knows he needs to use them to great effect. He's not close enough into turn 1 to make the move. But Roseborough's burned a push to pass, that's important. Look how close he gets. Oh, he's got so much grip out of the run out of the Curva de Sol. Rashad Craig, fastest lap of the race, and Canapino being frustrated by Roseborough here. But only for one more corner. He'll take the off track. He'll sweep around the outside. And the Juncos Hollinger Racing #1 storms forward to second. And Canapino surely would be a driver you'd think has the ability to put in the fastest lap of the race. Problem is, he's got to make some moves first. And the next move might be the tougher one, given that Baderfer's got 4 more push to passes in hand. Surely you frustrate, you've got to try. Baderfer did a 1:19.0 last time by. There he goes. So Canapino, in comparison, is going to rely on the grip of the tyre initially, and once he gets close enough, then he'll try and hope for an additional advantage to come from the additional 60 to 70 horsepower he gets. There's the look on board with him. Let's flick back in the pack though. Oh, Brian Carey thought about it. That was going to be a move a day late and $1 short, likely. He backed out just in the nick of time. There you can see Craig Carasales slightly in front of Manzano as it sits right now. Let's turn our attention back to the front. Charlie Sears and Olivia Hayward, by the way, they're relatively close in the fight for what is 14th position, but look at that track map. The race leaders, as they swing back out down on the bottom right corner of your screen, the #2 of Bader for the one to watch. Only one lapped car to keep an eye on. Olivia Hayward has officially made the move. That is alternate compound tire, sliding past primary. Will it be as easy for Canapino, who's been able to etch out another couple of tenths of a second this time by? Get a better margin at the line. Half a second on that lap. Remember, only gaining a tenth on that previous lap because had to make the move on Roseborough, who burned some push to passes to try and defend. Brian Carey can't get close enough to Daniel Manzano to make something happen here. But he's on the button now. Remember, he's a little bit short in gearing to make the move down at turn 1. It's much easier here down at the end of the Retta Aposta. Shorter straight. And Carey's car slides forward. So Canapino's in touching distance now of your race leader. We've got next time by 10 laps to go. What do you do if you're Baderfer? How aggressive are you willing to go in your defense here? Keep an eye on the onboards on the bottom right corner of your screen. A flick between both Baderfer, Canapino, and maybe even Roseborough. Get an insight as to what's going on at a more level that's closer to the track itself. Rashad Craig still has that fastest lap of the race, let's not forget. So much more grip down out of the long left-hander. Here comes Canapino. Within a couple of car lengths, but not close enough. And if he's not going to get it done in a straight line, he'll get it done through the corners. Is he feeling confident enough to try something here on the 26th lap of the race? 4 laps into the run for Canapino, 8 laps into the stint for Baedefer. Got some different strategy plays at hand right now. Remember, Carey and Manzano, there was a couple of laps between them as well. Is Manzano feeling the pain of the alternates that early on in the stint? Something to keep an eye on for Canapino here up front. Now they have managed to drop Brandon Roseborough for the most part. And here comes the push to pass from Canapino. Covered off from John Baedefer in front of him. Now how close can Canapino get? Problem is he's run out of revs. He hit the top of the gear limiter. Canapino working with the team at Powerslide Motorsport. He's probably dealing with a similar issue to what Brian Carey was frustrated by. He'll jump back on the push to pass. Now just 1 usage left in the course of this race. He's got to get it done now. He's forced to look to the outside. Baedefer, in fact, runs the middle in the braking zone. It was beautifully judged in terms of defense. And now frustration might mount. It's got to happen now, surely. He'll set up a sweeper, a long, wide, open arc to the corner. Some great fighting going on up and down through the field, to be fair. It's not just up front. Benjamin Hackison's just made the move on Nick Sudik. At 12 seconds back from Manzano, only 3 seconds in front of Joseph Manning. And look at the fact that Nick Sudik trying to make sure he's established in the rearview mirror as they work up through Ferradura. Canapino's got to be economical now with the push to pass, and just as I say that, he uses it very, very late in the run. Once again, he runs out of revs. He runs out of room. He runs out of time to make the move down into turn 1. And John Baedefer has run Augustin Canapino out of usages of the push to pass. And now 2 more usages after this for Baedefer to defend. Canapino can do nothing but watch at the end of this straight. Oh, this is incredible. This is a battle on strategy to watch. And when do we reach that crossover mark? The fact that Canapino has been running the speed of Baedefer and Roseborough for his stint on the alternates. Now, does that mean that he actually is going to have less fall off on tyre? Or is he going to start to worry about the fact that Roseborough sits very, very nicely in third behind? It is Hydra Race Geodesic 1 and 3. Indy Alliance Racing 4 and 5. And then Powerslide Motorsports' second representative in many ways in the race, Brian Carey, down in 6th position. Here we go. Tell you what, John Baedefer burns through his push to passes before Canapino runs out of grip. He will be in trouble. Let's watch here. A bit more understeer for Canapino than is normal. How close can he get at the end of this straight? Got 3 cars within 1.2 seconds. And once again, just a reminder on that left-hand side where we sit with the push-to-pass usage. 1 left for Baedefer. None for Canapino. 3 for Roseborough. Now the problem is, I don't think he's going to get the opportunity to try and slingshot his way to the front. It's going to be very difficult knowing that it seems as though every driver is geared for, well, basically to run out of revs at the end of the straight. Does Baedefer use the button here? Does he wait? Does he use it when he needs to? He uses it now! Right, we've run out of push to passes between the top 2. 60 extra horsepower no longer at their disposal. Yes, they've still got a good 600 horsepower under the control of the right foot, but now the right finger may be a bit itchy. And if you're Canapino, you sense this is the time, your last chance potentially. Remember, push to pass, dumping a bit more power into the engine effectively for the driver. Also burns a bit more fuel. So I hope they're not worried about their fuel mileage at this point. 5 to go at the line though. We've got a sprint race at this point. And the fastest lap seemingly going to sit with Craig at the end of this race. Remember, he and Carousel are very much locked into their fight for second in the championship as it runs right now. Here we go. Rosberg on the button. I would have thought he'd try to draft his way closer, but no. What's Canapino thinking? This is the closest he's been in quite a while. Badeford goes defensive, forced to. And Canapino forces him to watch the right-hand side and watch as he takes the race lead away. Oh, it's absolutely audacious. He almost runs out of grip, sliding down through the center S's. But new race leader. And now Brandon Roseborough, what does he do with his teammate looking to try and maybe go 3 wide? Oh my days, not going to happen just yet. Right, now if you're Canapino, set sail in this middle sector. Badeford's going to try and make him work really, really hard though. They're fighting behind as well. Nick Sudik's just made the move on Benjamin Hackison. But this is a battle for the ages up at the very front of the field. And there's no team games here, you can tell that. Between Badeford and Roseborough, they want the win. And they'll want to do it on their own terms. Now what those terms are, we'll have to wait and see. As side by side, oh, long way around. Benjamin Hackison is slip and sliding his way up towards the run at turn 8. He's not going to be able to get the move on Nick Sudik, but they've stacked up behind Sophia Cannell, and as well, closing in is, I think, Joseph Manning. Meanwhile, teammates wheel to wheel, and Brandon Roseborough, one push to pass left to play. Now, could they allow him to try and make the move? Badeford holds the inside down out of turn 3, and Canapino's margin extended. Like I said, no team games, that's for sure. Looking off the shoulder of your race leader. And fair to say as well, a driver that wants to put some frustration behind him after an incident on the streets of Toronto. All they need to do is fight here. They'll help Canapino run away. Similar story maybe for those behind. Nick Sudik passed once again by Benjamin Hackison. Joseph Manning's going to try and go around the outside. No. Off the track is indeed what's going to happen there. And again, reminder, if you stray too close to the incident limit, there is a risk of a drive-through penalty here. So Brandon Roseborough, the only driver in the front 3 to have a push to pass to use, but it's only one. Again, around 60 to 70 horsepower more, the advantage that you get from hitting that button. Does also eat into your fuel reserve just that little bit more as well, let's not forget. That did look like there was some traffic, but that's Charlie Sears, who is the final car on the lead lap, a couple of corners in front of Canapino. With 3 laps to go, I think it's unlikely that Sears is going to end up being a major factor, but just keep an eye on that. It could end up being something to watch. Meanwhile, Nick Sudik slides backwards through the field once more. Shady Ahmad makes the move, and Benjamin Hackison going to go wheel to wheel with Manning out of the long left-hander. This is some great fighting in the mid-pack. This is great. They've shown each other some respects. They've been fighting all the way through the race as well. For the most part, all on the same strategy. Benjamin Hackison challenging his inner Marcus Armstrong. And now on the inside on the climb up to Ferragura, he makes 8th position his own. And again, just 2 to go at the line to hold on, but 4 cars in contention here for 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. Back at the line, 2 laps to go. Traffic out of the way. And on board with Brandon Roseborough. They just don't have anything at this stage. I think part of that might just be down to Canapino, who is still doing 1:18.9, so he's not fallen off into the mid-19s like we saw at the end of the run for some of the alternate compound tire starters. What does that mean, though, in the next lap? How much more fall-off is there still left? Manning back past Hackison. Ahmad closer to the back of the number 10 than he was a lap ago, with Nick Sudik right in touch as well. And all of these drivers still have at least 1 push to pass left to go. Could they have a drag race to the line amongst these drivers? That's what I'm wondering. Seems a bit more likely than the trio up front. Joseph Manning has 2 push to passes left, so he is the one best situated, you'd assume, leading the pack, and some extra power at the disposal. Roseborough uses the final push to pass, though. Here we go. We've got 1 more lap at Interlagos. It's Agustin Canapino that leads on alternate tires that have done 13 full laps. 1:18.6 for him last time by. They're not showing any signs of age. Exactly what he wanted to see in terms of the lap time. On board with Brandon Roseborough. He'll close on his teammate. Not going to get close enough on that run down to the Decido del Lago. Running out of Yunsao, by the way. Bit wide for Benjamin Hackison. And Joseph Manning's waved them goodbye. An entire full lap for them still left to fight. And in the case of this little trio, that quartet now that has still been left, it would seem, Joseph Manning's only 1.3 seconds up the road. Some lap traffic as well. There are some push to passes at hand. We'll keep an eye on them as they drag race their way to the line. There was a bit of a mistake, though, from Canapino. A bigger mistake from Badefer. Here comes Roseborough down out of Mergulio. Out through Yunsao. No push to pass left for anyone here. And so the drag race to the line going to be for second, because in what has been a strategic masterclass, waiting as long as possible to throw on the alternate compound tire, Agustin Canapino on top here at Interlagos, and between teammates it's 50 thousandths of a second, and John Badefer holds on by the slimmest of margin. Here comes the rest. Craig Carasala, and then Brian Carey. Daniel Manzano a bit further behind after really struggling on the alternate compound of tire. He might even end up losing out to Joseph Manning here. Wonder if he potentially filled himself just that little bit too short and needed to do a bit more fuel saving than was anticipated. He'll hold on just about. Trio behind will finish in the order of Ahmad, Hackison and Sudik. But wow, what a race, and what a fun one between those up front. Looking forward to chatting to Badefer and Roseborough, getting a sense from them exactly how much they were confident in their, decision to start on the primary compound of tire, or rather the alternate compound, and switch onto the primary, especially when they saw the rest of the field around them electing to go the other way. Final drivers will come to the line. We'll get a look at the unofficial race results. Of course, iRacing does have the ability post-race, if there is anything warranting some steward intervention, to adjust the race results. Not going to be something happening up front, though. Canapino 1.1 seconds clear of the 2 teammates in the black and gold. Badefer from Roseborough. A little bit of fighting between them on the final lap. And look at that margin. 50 thousandths of a second. Rashad Craig holds on to 4th in his fight with Sam Carasala for 2nd in the championship. That will net him some decent points, with Brian Carey and Daniel Manzano 6th and 7th. Then back to Joseph Manning, Shady Ahmad, Benjamin Hackison, and Nick Sudik down in what was 11th position for the All-American iRacers entry. Lucas Lodato, Craig Forsyth, Olivia Hayward, and Robin Glennox all scored on the leading lap, unlike Charlie Sears, who did pull out of the way and made sure not to be a problem for your race leaders when he went one lap down. Nicholas Marzas and Sophia Cannell as well, who both had incidents on the opening lap, came down to pit lane, got some damage repair. They also stayed out of the way once they rejoined, and all 18 Dallara IR18s did indeed see the checkered flag. Well, what a race. 35 laps fly on past, and now we'll see if we do get a chance to catch up with the pair of HydroRace Geodesic racing teammates. Not entirely sure we'll get the chance to catch up with the lovely Agustin Canapino. If you can't tell, I'm just waiting to see if I see the teammates pop up in the broadcast booth. But let's look forward, I guess, to July 29th, when we will have our next round of the championship. Should be a lot of fun from the Homestead Miami Speedway. It's not traditionally where you see the IndyCars go racing on the ovals, but tell you what, I've commentated on my fair share of IndyCar races, both in the DW12 and the Dallara IR18 around this track, and it's a unique challenge, I can tell you that much, and a challenge both in terms of setup and driving. In-car adjustments, got to stay very much on top of them. And well, this all in a little bit of a run that sees us explore the unknown. It's not like we've seen IndyCar race very frequently at Interlagos, but as they take their summer break, step aside for the Olympics to take center stage on NBC, at least for us a chance to do some fun stuff. Homestead as well, a trip to the streets of Chicago. That's, let's be honest, one of the more intriguing ones. Gonna be very curious to see how that all plays out. And then after that, back over with the NTT IndyCar Series Worldwide Technology Raceway, Watkins Glen, and then Milwaukee Mile. Lots of fun still left to be had. We gave them plenty of time. Well, they finally, just about in the nick of time, came to join us. So we'll have a very, very quick chat with John Badifer and Brandon Roseborough, who step into the broadcast booth. John Badifer is finishing second, joins us now. John, talk us through that one from your perspective, especially that strategic call to start on the alternate compound. When he saw the rest of the field on the primary, did he think you had gone slightly wrong?
I don't know. I feel like it didn't really matter either way. Both were pretty good tires, and I just didn't want to have to race Canapino the whole race, so I just decided to split from what he did.
Talk to us in terms of level of downforce. Were you trimmed out? How did that car feel in the middle sector, and how fast was it in a straight line?
It felt really good when I didn't overdrive the hairpins, which I made a couple mistakes towards the end there and did that, but otherwise, yeah, it felt pretty good, and I feel like our top line speed was pretty decent as well.
Congratulations on a great run for HydroRace Geodesic Racing, second and third, and hoping to see you a couple more times the rest of the season. Of course, you're heading to the Chicago Street Circuit in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, that should be a fun race. Thanks, Arjuna.
And from John Badifer over to Brandon Roseborough. Brandon, bit of a drag race to the line. Talk to me about push to passes, and did you wish you still had that last one in reserve on the run to the checkered?
Honestly, I don't know if I would have done anything differently. I was trying to save something in the bank just in case Augustine and John got into it and I could catch back up, because I know I left a little bit of a gap. But that was awesome. Like, I'm very happy with that result, no matter what.
Well, it seemed like a fun race as well. Talk to me about this track in particular. How does it flow in that middle sector when you're, trying not to overdrive it, as John was saying as well?
Yeah, definitely. We've done a ton of laps here, not necessarily in IndyCar, but just in other categories, and that's definitely the name of the game. It's just keeping it smooth in the hairpins and just not blocking off your front tires when you lock up.
Well, second and third for HydroRace Geodesic. Great day for the team, and hoping we'll see you a bit more over the rest of the season.
Definitely. Take care.
So Brandon Roseborough rounds out our post-race coverage, and indeed rounds out our coverage as well. All good things must come to an end, but I can't wait to see you all from the Sunshine State, from Homestead, Miami, Florida, July 29th here on RaceSpotTV for some more Monday Night IndyCar action, maybe even with Jason Brophy behind the wheel. For our team behind the scenes, though, here at RaceSpotTV, always a pleasure to have you join us. My name's Arjuna Kankipati. Can't wait to do this all in a week's time. Augustin Canapino on top in what was a thriller here from Interlagos. We should do this a bit more often. Time to send IndyCar around the world and maybe down to Brazil sooner rather than later.